and then we'll kind of move on from that. So the next topic we had was for training. Somebody sent in a question about pros and cons of free weights versus machines.
Nice.
So before you and I keep talking, I'm gonna put you in the spot. So what are your thoughts? So like for everybody looking or listening, my mom is just starting personal training, so she's been lifting weights for 13 years, and we've done 3 bodybuilding shows, 3 powerlifting meets. She absolutely knows this stuff, but this is the first time you're trying to apply it to other people. So in your own training, think about it that way. Is like you and I have prepped for all that stuff. Like, what do you think are some pros and cons or benefits or whatever?
Well, some of the pros of machines are they keep you in the right pathway and when you're moving. But one of the cons is a lot of machines are made for men. It's harder for women to use. And my personal self, I like free weights because I think you get more bang for your buck in exercising with them because you have to think about stability.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you use your core strength, and you have to make sure your form and your pathways are right.
Yeah, that's a big thing. Like talk about like stability. We'll take that as like the first thing to talk about is if you have somebody who can't, they're so new to lifting, their coordination levels are low, and you tell them to lay down and do like a chest press with dumbbells, and their arms are everywhere, or they're pressing up here by their face. So sometimes getting them on a machine and fixing their pathway, making it the exact position you want, and then getting them used to firing the muscles in that pathway can improve their coordination and stability. And then you take them to free weights, and you can even it doesn't have to be you have to use machines for 6 months. It's just in one single workout, I could go over to a shoulder press machine and say, this is what I want shoulder presses to feel like, and then you can actually superset. I can have them do a light set of machine work, and a light set of dumbbell work, go back and forth, and then they'll be able to feel, can I mimic the same feel with the free weights as I can with the machine?
We actually
so that's a
do
good
that in
learning.
our group.
Yeah, so you do a group training class for women, and that's what they do as one of their activities is they'll have pretty much similar exercise repeated back and forth. So they'll do like a machine overhead press versus a dumbbell overhead press. Then you might do like a dumbbell curl versus a machine curl. And that's what you're trying to teach those ladies is what's the difference and what's the feel. So yeah, so you are right, is if a person has poor stability, a machine can protect them and help them learn stability. Now on the opposite side of that is since machines do stabilize you, you do use less muscles. So you might be able to focus, if I do an overhead press machine, with it balancing me, I can hyper-focus into my shoulder muscles. So that might be a good overload into my shoulder muscles. But I'm doing no work really in the stability muscles. So if I only ever do machines, I'm going to get my shoulder really strong but not have the stability to use that strength. If I only ever do free weights, I'm going to have good stability, but I might be lacking that overload into that individual muscle that I really want.
Would machines work better if someone has like an injury or coming rehabbing?
Yes and no. So that's the same issue, is if their injury, like let's say that right now, like I injured, let's go with ankle. So, and I hurt my ankle, and if I do a bunch of free weight movements like walking lunges and stuff, that's a lot of flexion and movement on my ankle, and my ankle might not be ready for that. So I might have to go to leg press where like my ankle's kind of fixed, but I can still work my legs. But eventually, I'm going to get the strength back in that injury, but I need to get the stability back in the injury as well. So the first thing we'd want to do is make sure that the strength is put back into the injured area, and then once it's sufficient in strength, we would then go back and put stability into it. So that's kind of what I would do, is I would start with machines to make sure they're safe and strong, and then like say it's a knee injury, and before they hurt their knee, they can do leg extensions at say 100 pounds. And right now, they can't even lift the arm. It's not time you have to do away from the machine. But once they get back to say, I'm just making up an arbitrary number, say 50 to 70%, it's probably okay then to start doing bodyweight stuff that challenges the stability. Yeah, so you still need both. So coming back from injury is get the strength first, then get the stability. And even for healthy people, we want to work on both components. So I actually recently just listened to a podcast. Ben Pakulski has a podcast, and actually Jonathan turned me on to it. God, I don't remember the name, that's a bummer. But if you search Ben Pakulski podcast, it'll come up. And he had a guy named Jordan Shallow, who's the muscle doc on social media. and he was talking about the concept of stability versus strength. And I thought of this in my squat, is my thighs are stronger than my hips. So when I walk back a really heavy squat, it's really shaky. When I go to squat and brace and push into the floor, my hips are weak. So what I've always been working on is just making my legs stronger, stronger, stronger. I never really did instability work, like wobbly single leg stiff leg deadlifts that would work the hip joint, or doing things that were more kind of like instability and different planes of motion to build up my hips' ability to rock itself in the sun. So now I started doing, as my warm-up and my cool-down, I do single leg stiff leg deadlifts and like single leg RDLs. You know, I do single leg things where my foot is planted but my hip is like unstable. And that makes sense because in the squat my foot is planted and my hip is unstable. So I wouldn't want to do something where my hip is stable and my foot's wobbly, because that's not how I really plan to use that joint. So I want to do it specific. So like, for example, for push-ups, like I started doing for bench pressing, where I push up on weird stuff that's all wobbly. So because my shoulders would be stable in the bench press and my hands would have to weight, and I would have to be modifying where my hands are. So if I put my hands on something on the floor, if it's just the floor, that's too stable. If I put my hands on softballs or weird goofy things and they're doing this the whole time, they're having to modify just like they would with bench press. Yeah. So you can think of it as I rambled there for a good bit, but is using machines and free weights for the stability factor. It would be beneficial to use both for powerlifting, for strength development. It's beneficial for both for injury and stuff. Now if you want to talk about bodybuilding, what are the pros and cons of using machines versus free weights for bodybuilding?
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes back to bang for buck, like you said. Training economy is what I call it. With free weights, especially working with people, how much benefit can I get from the least amount of work? And typically free weights produce that, because you're not only activating, like we said, the main muscle, but you're getting the stabilizers in there for that benefit. Now, if you've reached a certain point to where, let's say you're a bodybuilder in that situation and you're doing barbell overhead press, and your medial delts are lagging, the outside delts, that overhead press is not going to do much to continue to overload those medial delts. So what we would do is get, an isolation movement or a machine, like a lateral raise, or maybe even the seated shoulder press, because you can hold a wider grip on it.
Yeah.
And
you can change your position.
Exactly, to get more, medial delt activation. So it's an assessment-based thing. There's no way to say machines are better than free weights. It's all scenario or situation-based.
Yeah, and that would be my biggest thing I want people to take away is they both have merit, and they both have pros and cons. So you probably want to use both in your training.
Right.
So yeah. So how to know exactly when to use what? That's trial and error and live and learn. Like you just have to work through that. So like you said, as trainer, as you work with more people, you realize if somebody comes in and they have no coordination, we might have to start with machines.
Right. So
if they have some level of coordination, you might start with free weights. Then eventually, when they have perfectly fine coordination and they're pretty strong, you're going to need to do both. So yeah, for the various reasons. So that's kind of a little bit of discussion on the pros and cons of those. So the next thing we have is